Hi all. Okay, so we want to talk about some color theory, and I want to go through a series of slides here and kind of touch on some kind of important properties as far as color and the use of color um, in your projects. And this is, of course, very important. How we view color can create a range of feeling and emotion. Um, Even as we look at this one central color wheel right now, we think of everything from yellow to kind of violet as warm colors, colors that kind of evoke fire or feelings of love and warm emotions. Whereas cooler colors are kind of darker purples, blues, into greens, can feel more like ice or snow or cold water, and cooler kind of blue, the blues as far as like feelings. Um, um, and so we feel this across planes, through kind of the human existence of feeling different emotions through colors. And of course, this has been used for years, both in the arts and in advertising and graphic design, as ways of thinking and kind of employing color. So real quick, to think just as far as RGB and CMYK, RGB, typically we're thinking of additive color, and anything additive is backlit. So like your computer screen is backlit by white light. And so it's additive color. So here, used by screens, tiny dots of light of these colors behind together to form more color, to form images, sorry. The more color added, the lighter the image. Areas with the most color are white. And then CMYK, which is, it goes hand in hand with printing. So used by printers, tiny dots of ink of these colors blended together to form images. The more color added, the darker the image. Areas with the most color are black. And again, black itself is used. So typically if you go and you look at a large scale printer, you'll see cartridges that will be they'll have cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Sometimes they'll have a light black and a black, like two different blacks. Sometimes it just depends on the printer itself. Grayscale, when we think of grayscale, we're thinking of black and white and all the colors in between. Not colors, but all the grays in between. So from a very light into a very dark gray. And so again, some of these other terms I'll kind of skip over here because we're going to talk about them more on these next slides. Okay, so primary colors. Traditional primary colors we think of as red, yellow, and blue. And from those, we can mix a whole host of other colors. And I'm going to jump over our kind of modern primary to our secondary. And so then we have green, yellow, orange, red, violet, and blue. And these are kind of colors that we've mixed from our primary colors, and then so on down the line to our tertiary colors. So here, and I'm thinking and talking like a painter, you would essentially have your palette of colors, and just starting even with red, yellow, and blue, and being able to mix and use those colors to mix all these other colors. And then once you add in, of course, the black and or white, you can get a whole host of tints, tones, and shades with those. Color harmony. So color harmony is how, again, we experience color and how color makes us feel. And we can kind of tie that to how we can choose color from a color wheel. And generally, when we're looking at all of the colors together, we're going to look at them in a wheel format, right? So analogous colors, when we talk about analogous colors, we're talking about colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, anywhere on the wheel. Complementary colors are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So a really good example is red and green. If you think about Christmas, those are complementary colors, and those are across from each other on the color wheel, as well as like blue and orange, yellow and violet, things like this. So triad of colors is using a kind of the geometric shape of a triangle to kind of pick colors and using those colors as a color combination. And then natural colors, again, very similar to complementary, but now we're almost at a split complementary where we're using one color and then the colors next to its complement side by side. Color context, again, the arrangement or placement or how a color appears on top of a different colored background. So here using the same kind of shapes repeated over and over again, but using a different combination of colors. So this is really important when you start to think about how you've done and created your logo and some of the projects here in Illustrator, because Illustrator is really nice about the ease of kind of going back and using picking colors and the whole range of colors as well. Color properties. So I liken color properties to Instagram. If you use Instagram and the filters that you can apply on photographs, cool, warm, bright, dark, saturated, desaturated. These are all things, of course, you could do with filters, but they're also modes of working in any kind of graphic design program, kind of using those colors to create an overall feel of your design. Color modes, so we've talked about RGB, CMYK, HSB, just being hue and its saturation, as well as black and the shades of that, and then of course grayscale. So this is a really good slide, and I think a really good example of the kind of color relationship with using one logo kind of repeated throughout and using that color relationship across the board. So I ask that you kind of come back and spend some time and just kind of look at this slide because it kind of helps visualize how, like, even in your own work with your own logos or your own poster designs, what the change of color can do to that image that you've created. And so many of these we've already talked about. I'll just kind of mention again, we've got, we talk about intensity and contrast, both in complementary, but also in using split complementary colors. So complementary would technically just be two colors. Split complementary, we're using three colors as our principal colors that we're only using, and then double complementary. And again, you can really see some really great ways of kind of working through color. Color properties, again, we kind of mentioned that, but then this is, I think, just a good illustration here below of color relationships, just by looking at them, how they're oriented on the color wheel. Primary, and just using, again, the triangle, drawing dots from yellow to red to blue. A square relationship. Now here you can start to move that orientation around the color wheel, that it doesn't have to be specifically those colors. Like on our color wheel, if we look at a complementary, we see blue across from orange, but if we rotate that, we can rotate it to where green or light green is across from kind of like violet, yellow, purple, green to red, etc. And then again, to go back, I mentioned this early on, but thinking about what a color is, if I say, orange, that is a hue. But within orange, there are different colors of orange itself. We have, if we want a tint of orange, we're going to use orange plus white. A tone is going to be that color plus gray. A shade is going to be that color plus black. And so this can go on, and it doesn't have to be just it's in 4 principal colors. It can be even more and greater. Here, another kind of illustration of that when you're thinking about what a tint is, a tone, and a shade. And then this can go on for quite a while. If we think about how many colors there are, it's kind of endless. If you go to, like Home Depot or any paint supply store, often you're kind of overwhelmed by the amount of colors that you can choose from. And that is the same kind of when you're getting started in Illustrator or any kind of program, that there are quite a few options as far as picking colors. And again, so it can be a little overwhelming at first, but once you start to kind of recognize the ease of picking colors, you can start to really expand your kind of repertoire of using these different colors. And again, just think of the wealth of color, how color can evoke or even entrance you as you kind of look at it, and its absolute importance in kind of design and art. And again, I'll kind of leave you with this last slide, which is just, you know, a simple pattern, but again, color kind of makes it operate in a kind of optical illusion kind of element. Okay, so that's it for this one. Thanks a lot.